Relationships, right. Now, aren't we all human, and don't we all want incredible, passionate, soothing, peaceful, simple relationships? Relationships where there's little drama, where we are with our beloved, where we have found the one, and everything is peachy, and we live happily ever after in the sunset, right? Now, of course, that's a fairy tale. However, weren't skyscrapers also a fairy tale? Now, who could have envisaged 200 years ago building something that was hundreds of meters up in the air, like that huge, tall house? That could never have been imagined. So, you know, us humans, we are capable of some of the most amazing feats that just a short time ago could not have been imagined. So why not build the skyscraper of relationships? Well, guess what? Relationships, just like skyscrapers, just like architecture, just like engineering, have their own laws, have their own rules that if you obey them, if you first get to know them, then you can build a happy relationship. Now, my name is Octavian Saberna. I'm a doctor, I'm a psychotherapist, I'm an acupuncturist based mainly in emotional and karmic acupuncture. We'll talk about those quite a bit in later videos. But what I've been setting out to do, and this is why you're watching this video right now, is that I've taken my 25 years of clinical experience in which I've witnessed thousands of relationships, right? Thousands of relationships between couples, between parents and children, between co-workers, between any kind of relationship. And, you know, do this enough time and you'll definitely see patterns arising. And of course, you know, learning about this by reading books, doing courses and all that, of course helps. So, why am I talking to you? I want to bring this knowledge to you. I want to help you have better relationships. And I want to bring my knowledge not only on a, let's say, theoretical level, right? Okay, I can't be your therapist if you're watching me from thousands of miles away, but I am launching my podcast, which aims to help you improve your relationships, and maybe that entails you having a therapy. No, sorry. Did I say maybe? No. Definitely, if you're not doing therapy, you should be doing therapy, right? But it's not just the doing of therapy. Maybe you are already doing a form of therapy, right? I was talking in the previous video, right, that one of the main areas in this podcast is going to be therapies, right? So that we understand where things are coming from, what kind of therapy and therapists we need to be looking for, what the approach could be, should be, and etc., right? What happens, for example, is that many times for those of us who are emotionally literate, right? So like, for example, the term emotional intelligence is not just you know, it's not just a puzzling world and all that, but it's actually something that we practice regularly, right? So maybe we go to therapy, we read about stuff, maybe you're one of those people, right? If this is you, then this podcast and this video is for you, because that's why I'm talking to you. It's to you that I want to bring new information, new approaches, new perspectives, because I'm tired of speaking on a one-to-one basis and just influencing the life of one person at a time, right? I've seen, and I consider myself very lucky to have been given the chance to influence people through the knowledge that has been gathered by many generations behind me. I'm talking about, for example, the knowledge in traditional Chinese medicine, the knowledge in psychotherapy, the knowledge in many other branches, which I have come to, you know, condense into a meaningful whole, right, which can actually and does actually influence lives, right? So if you find this interesting, if you want to know more about this, if you want to learn how you can improve your relationships, then this is for you. Now, of course, what makes this different, right? Why not see any other video, do any other course, or just, you know, just take the first therapist and you know, take it? Well, I'll tell you why. Like, for example, about 10% of my patients are actually psychotherapists, right? So they're very much aware of what traumas they have. They're very much patients of their own therapies. And by any means, I'm not degrading any of these therapies. I have been a patient of psychotherapy myself, and I definitely am very, very glad about the results that it gave me. But, as I was saying in the previous video, maybe you've watched it, maybe you don't. If you didn't, maybe you should. There's a one line in a Netflix series which really, really grasped the essence of why I think acupuncture can really do an amazing job, the emotional kind of acupuncture. And we'll talk about the karmic kind of acupuncture in some other videos in the future. The line was, a truth is not a truth until it lives in the body, right? So maybe you've learned about your childhood trauma. Maybe you learned about your style of attachment. Maybe you're anxious. Maybe you're avoidant. Maybe you're disorganized as an attachment style. Maybe you know all these things. Maybe you've learned about them, read about them, right? Done some therapy about all these things. And maybe you think you've worked through all these, and yet your life hasn't actually changed that much. Maybe it's improved a little bit, but the main story is pretty much the same, right? Now, why am I talking to you? Because I've seen this story and heard this story so many times. And what I've seen is that emotional acupuncture can make these truths that maybe you've understood rationally actually live in the body. What I mean is deep emotional soothing and healing, right? Because emotional acupuncture can do that. Now, the question will be, okay, so if you're, I don't know, on a different continent or in a different country from me, would you still benefit from these things? Yes, of course. And why? Because I'm not doing this to get you as a patient. I'm getting this so that you have a better understanding of what kind of therapy you should be pursuing. The first and foremost step of healing starts with the right understanding. The right understanding of what it is that you're going through, what's broken, how can you fix it. And again, I'm returning to the idea of therapy, because the right therapy can really do wonders for you, right? Anyway, so we're really going to study all about relationships because, for example, we're going to, in this podcast, we're going to have 4 main areas that we focus on. One is different kinds of therapies and different concepts from therapy, and we're really going to deep dive into various therapies, why some are good, some are better, what are they good for, and there's a common core in the deep, powerful therapies, because there's not just one, right? There are quite a few that can really, take things out, and there are some common ideas, common laws. There's a common core of wisdom that any deep therapist knows, right? The idea is also to live it, not just to know it rationally. So we're going to explore that, because if you really digest these little bits of wisdom, these little droplets of wisdom, and you really internalize them, it can really make a big difference in your life. So we're going to talk about therapies, we're going to talk about relationships, and I want to talk to you in this video more about relationships. We're going to talk about parenting, and we're going to talk about spirituality. So these are the 4 main areas that we're going to cover. Now, of course, if you want some topics to be addressed, feel free to leave me a comment, and maybe, I can do a video on the subject, but I'd be really surprised if your subject was not already part of my plan. But let's see, I challenge you on that. Write to me in the comments what you'd like to have addressed. So, coming back to relationships, why am I making relationships a whole, pillar in my podcast? Well, the idea is very simple. In my experience as a therapist, I've seen just how much suffering negative relationships create, right? There's a whole dynamic that creates enormous suffering and actually creates physical disease that can really manifest in ways that you can feel, you can see, you can objectify in blood tests and MRI scans and stuff like that. And actually, when you treat the root cause, you see all those things going back. Actually, it is amazing for me. I'm also a medical doctor, as I was saying, right? One of the key questions that doctors could ask, and one of the main easy conclusions that you could draw, is if doctors were to ask, when did this whatever symptom, disease, whatever, right, start? They always ask that. But then there's a follow-up question. And the follow-up question is, what was happening in your life at that time? More than half the time, usually the person you're going to ask is aware of the fact that there was something happening. There was a very, toxic relationship then bursting out. There was a very, very stressful period. There was something that had a huge emotional effect on them, right? There's an emotional shock there, right? And they were very well aware of the fact that actually triggered the physical part, right? But in Western medicine, we only treat the manifestation. Even though Western medicine recognizes that emotions can be part of the cause of a disease, it does not undertake to actually treat the cause, because it sees the emotional causes as something outside the realm of conventional medicine. Well, in Chinese medicine, for example, we don't have that distinction. The view of Chinese medicine is that the human being is a whole, right? So it's a holistic approach. It has a physical, a mental, an emotional, and a spiritual dimension. And the cause of the disease, most of the time, is not on the physical level. Unless, you lifted something very heavy and you broke your back, and then of course the cause of the disease is physical. But other than that, it's most likely going to be emotional. So let's get a little bit into the juicy stuff. We're going to talk about love triangles. We're going to talk about what cheating means, because actually, the cheating is actually not so simple, right? If we take the definition of, okay, so two people are in a relationship and then there's a third one coming up, right? And one of the two is going to cheat on their partner with that third one, and that's the social definition of cheating. But I'm going to, come to you and ask, who is cheating on who? Because if you're not happy in a relationship, if the relationship is actually negative for you, if it's toxic, if everybody in the relationship is just unhappy, right? Your soul is not there anyway, right? So if you stay in the relationship, aren't you actually cheating on your soul, right? And if you actually follow your soul, are you actually cheating or are you not cheating, right? I'm not going to say, right? You're going to see in the podcast my view on it. And it's not a black or white thing. Please don't quote me on anything out of context. I'm not pro, I'm not against. The truth is with gray areas. But there are topics like these that once we understand the deeper levels of them, it's much easier to actually draw a conclusion of what needs to be done. And if we understand the principles, then it's much easier on in enacting that truth in our lives. And a lot of people have a lot of difficulty with this because we have various views that sometimes they are right, sometimes they are born out of conditioning in society, right? And sometimes we have a little bit of both, which come in conflict, which even creates even more confusion, right? So we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about toxic relationships. We're going to talk about codependent relationships. We're going to talk about what the roots of all these dynamics are and what we can do to get out of them, right? And most and foremost, right, this is probably one of the main things. It's not about meeting the right person, right? So we're going to talk about why it's not about that. Because, there's a very egotistic underlying idea here. I only need to find the right person. How do you know you're the right person, right? Because it's not the right person for everyone. It's not like a Lego game or anything. It's not, you're not doing a puzzle. That's just not right? If you're emotionally broken, I'm sorry to say, but you're in no condition to be in a happy relationship with anyone, right? You could actually meet the love of your dreams and you would not recognize him or her. We would actually not feel any attraction. We're going to analyze why you're attracted to the wrong kind of people. We're going to, and also, of course, right, we're going to talk about how you can get out of there, right? It's not just through therapy. There are other ways, not just through psychotherapy. There are other ways. And the whole idea is I want to give you the understanding, or part of the understanding that I've come to have, that will enable you to find your own solution out of your own situation. So anyway, we're going to launch the podcast on the 8th of April, right? So come join us. It's going to be fantastic. If you really are a seeker of answers, if you're a seeker of personal development, then this podcast will probably change your thinking, and probably, if you really work on implementing it, will change your life. I'll see you there.